With the garage set up, I could finally start to make some progress on the Capri. But before I get started, I'm first heading away for a few weeks. Longing for some warmer weather and great driving roads, a few months ago I booked a plane ticket to a place which has both. I'd be lying if I said it was a stress-free flight, with PCR tests needed before and after, and with a multitude of different requirements. This trip could easily become a quarantine disaster. But someone was looking down on me, and I was soon sipping on an ice cold beer in Bangkok, Thailand. Thailand's best known for its beautiful islands and beaches, but I'd come for the roads. I'd read that the north has some of the best driving roads in Asia. So as much as I enjoyed the turbocharged city of Bangkok, shortly after arriving I took a short domestic flight to the northern city of Chiang Mai. The pace of life here is much slower, with tranquil temples and amazing food. However, I'd come here to drive, so I needed to find a vehicle. I began looking for a 125cc motorbike, but this was proving difficult to find. So in the end, I settled for a Honda CB300. This F model being a naked version of the CB300R, with a 0 to 60 of 6.4 seconds and a top speed of 95 mph. Now I'm not the most experienced rider, so I was a little bit nervous about riding the bigger bike, especially in the busy Chiang Mai traffic. The biggest bike I'd ridden before was a 125, and even that was on mostly open roads. But I was ready for the challenge, and the extra power would certainly help on the steep mountain roads. With a price agreed, I tied on my oversized backpack, filled the bike with fuel, and set off. My first destination was Mae Hong Son, a small mountain town located to the north. It was meant to be a 6-hour drive, but I immediately set off going in the wrong direction, with my camera mostly pointing at the ground. It was a difficult start with lots of traffic and unfamiliar highways, but eventually I broke out into the beautiful mountain roads. They were much smoother than I expected, but one thing they were not was well signposted, and I found myself taking quite a few unplanned diversions. On one particular wrong turn, I even managed to ride all the way up Thailand's tallest mountain, Doi Chang. All these detours, enjoyable as they were, meant that the day was running out. I stopped for some food at the roadside and realised that I wasn't going to make Mae Hong Son that evening. So I found a nearby guest house where I could get some sleep and resume the ride the following day. The next day I was back on the road early. A full day riding would give me plenty of time to enjoy the ride, and without the busy Chiang Mai traffic, I was straight into the mountain roads. The owner of the guest house from the night before had told me to check out the local flower fields. There were some nice views, but it looked like I'd missed the full bloom by a week or so, with only a few flowers left. I was getting more confident on the bike and having a lot of fun, and so it was only a matter of time before the inevitable happened. I'd gone into a corner too fast. I thought it slowly banked up and so took a tight line. However, it was a banked hairpin. I did manage to stop in time, but unfortunately I stalled the bike. On a steep slope, the heavy bike and my top heavy bag were too much, and the bike toppled over. Luckily, the only thing I hurt was my pride. On the bike though, unfortunately, I'd bent the clutch lever. It was still usable, although a little uncomfortable, and I was a bit worried what the bike rental place would say. These things happen though, so I shut myself off and got straight back on the bike. It wasn't long before the awesome mountain roads made me forget about the fall. I decided to not stop in Mai Hong Son and go on straight to the town of Pai. Stopping to watch the sunset, I arrived after dark. In a local bar, I got talking to a Swiss guy called Michael, who was also travelling. After a few beers, we ended up heading to an out-of-town party, where we drank into the early hours. I felt it the next day though, as my head was banging when I woke up, and it seemed to take an eternity to strap up my bag on the bike. Thankfully, a 7-Eleven is never too far away, and I stopped for the perfect hangover cheese toastie. For the next couple of days, I just kept on driving. With roads this good, I could have driven forever, but I was excited to head towards Chiang Rai. I'd heard good things about this place, and so planned to stay here a few days. On the road there though, I had to swerve to miss a snake that got knocked out of a tree by a truck, and then a bee got stuck in my helmet, stinging me on the side of the head. Maybe a break would be a good thing for a few days. The traffic in Chiang Rai, whilst not as bad as Chiang Mai, was still pretty hectic. But I eventually made it to Grandma Q's guest house. I liked it here, a good place to rest for a few days. Whilst here, I decided to go see some of the sights. Beginning with the world famous White Temple, with hands reaching from below, symbolising unrestrained desire. Before heading to the Blue Temple at night, and even the ominous Black House out in the country. It was in Chiang Rai where I met Millie, who worked there as a medical researcher. After joining me for some of my sightseeing, she kindly invited me on a camping trip that her and her friends were going on. So I joined Ban, Pak, Millie, Zulene and Bo on a camping trip to Doi Chang. We borrowed a 4x4 and set off, and I'd have to say that it's one of the best camping trips that I've ever been on. The days consisted of driving from cafe to cafe, the cafes often being remote shacks with amazing coffee and stunning views. In between these, we went on short walks through the forest and up the mountain. And in the evening, to top it all off, a Thai barbecue and a crate of soju. Back in Chiang Rai, the local flower festival was on. Every year, hundreds of thousands of flowers are planted for a 2-week show, and I was lucky enough to be there when it was on. Millie also had a car, which she let me drive, and so we could venture a bit further out of Chiang Rai, visiting tea fields and many temples. I felt really at home in this part of Thailand, and I spent quite a bit of time thinking about life changes I could make, which would let me spend more time here. But eventually, it was time for me to go. I told the rental place that I'd have the bike back before New Year's. And so with some sadness, I set off back for Chiang Mai. It was a nice final drive, and I got the bike back just in time, despite all the mental traffic. The rental place were good to me, and thankfully, they didn't charge me much for the replacement clutch lever. It was New Year's Eve, and there was just enough time to get a return flight back to Bangkok, where I could welcome in the new year watching the fireworks there. It'd been one hell of a trip, and something that I would definitely recommend. There's a lot of things I want to do this year, and getting the Capri back on the road is the top priority. But when it's all done, one thing's for sure, I'll definitely be coming back to Thailand.